Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining us on this episode of the Pave It Forward Podcast. My name is Phil Metzger, and with me is Kevin Gray, and we are here to help leaders in the paving industry who are looking to run more efficiently, meet their ideal customer, and improve the lives of those around them through meaningful work. Kevin, how are we doing today?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Just another office day here in Kentucky because it's been raining for about the past 20 hours again, and another 75-80% of this week. So, we're getting the systems dialed in. We're banging some content out. We're doing all the other things. The phone's ringing, so we're running sales calls. So, although we're not out there producing, we're doing things to get this business up and off the ground. So it's all good, man. How are
Yeah,
you?
I'm doing all right. I'm doing all right. On my side of things, the equipment's a bit more technical, and I've been having a little bit of some fun late nights, just trying to fix some programs and equipment and stuff like that. But man, I love what I do, so no real complaints.
Yeah.
This is something that's pretty easy to get into, and the reason I like talking to you and to our audience is because a lot of these people are business owners. They do things themselves. They wear a bunch of hats just like I do. It's
Man.
really easy to empathize, though the definite physical aspect of it is not there. I'll tell you, the loss of sleep may be. So I'm hanging in there as well. It's really nice to be able to honestly get away, talk about some other stuff.
Yeah.
Than deal with that on the technical side. So glad to be here today and giving the people hopefully some valuable information on doing what we're doing now, which is being on camera.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, kudos to you and like, and it's a good reminder, man, because as difficult as things can be sometimes when you do wear so many hats and you are kind of the firefighter for the whole operation. I remind myself a lot, if it was easy, everybody would do this, would become an entrepreneur, would try and run their own business, would try and launch and whatever. So when times get tough and I get frustrated and things maybe aren't going as well as I think they should be, I got to remember that's part of the process to some extent, and just grit my teeth a little bit and bear it, and be fortunate that we do have an opportunity. So
Absolutely.
I'm glad you put that perspective on it, man.
Yeah, yeah, no problem. Hopefully, I don't get to do that too often through these
Right.
episodes.
Right.
But yeah, it's always frustrating. I've really gotten into time blocking over the last couple years, just at least trying to dedicate if there's like three major things of the day, at least sectioning off those. But typically, it ends up being seven or eight things, if not 10. And then once you
Yeah.
get three or four behind, it's hard to stay up. But I do like listening to other business owners talk. I like hearing about how businesses were built, a lot of documentaries and stuff like that on how America was built and the machines that built America and
Man.
all these different entrepreneurs that. And I tell you what, there aren't many of them that have very short stories that didn't have many lives like we're trying to lead here and make some differences.
No. No, and you don't ever find that word easy and or pain free in any of those stories, man. So
Absolutely.
if you want something bad enough, you got to come to the realization and acceptance that it's going to take some grit.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, the topic that we're dealing with today is being on camera, or if we, in general, just representing your company, being the face of your company and getting out there. So I wanted to kind of dive into what your thoughts were over that. We've gone through this together. I remember the first interview we did, I had you talking to a mop. Um, we put some bright lights on you. We gave you some. I'm not even sure we gave you the questions in advance. We eventually told you had to look basically into a light at a mop, and you still crushed it. We still got plenty of good content, and that's when I knew we were onto something good. But there doesn't always have to be bright lights. But it can be intimidating getting in front of the camera. So I was wondering if you could kind of dive into the benefits that you've seen from being on camera, and then we could have a conversation about what that does for a brand and a
Yeah,
company.
it's funny, man. I'll never forget the first time you turned a camera on me. I mean, what's it been, 5 years ago or so, probably now at this point. And
2017.
dude, man, 7 years ago, six,
Yeah,
7 years ago.
yeah,
Yeah. I was terrified.
yeah.
I mean, I knew, like, it's funny, like you know the things you want to say and talk about. You've got the experience and the wisdom or whatever on the subject matter that we were going to be discussing that you were trying to capture. But like, there's once the light comes on, and then the scary light is the red light that comes
Yeah.
on, and it's like, oh, now, okay, I got to look into that. You want me to look into the soul of the camera and
Yeah.
start like there's so much other things going on in your head along with the fear and anxiety of actually being filmed for the first time. You can't even think about what it is you're trying to talk about. So
Sure.
it takes some practice leaning into the art of getting comfortable even just in front of being in front of a camera. And but yeah, the benefits of that to me, there's all kinds of benefits. We've made a list of them here, and we can go through them and talk about them. But it humanizes the brand, and that I think that's why we started so long ago. Was like let's find a platform and a person, and typically a lot of times the person is the person that owns the company or is trying to spread the message or preach on top of the mountain who they are, what they believe in, what they stand for, what they do, what they're good at. um, so it kind of humanizes the brand, and that's been our goal all along, has been to humanize, to allow people into our business, to
Sure.
allow people to see the humans within the organization, not just the leader, but all of the people within the organization to the best of our ability and capacities, where it made sense to kind of lean on the human side uh, uh, of the sales part of what this branding does when you bring people onto camera. It builds trust. It allows us to do things like we're doing here today and talk about topics that our customers might be interested in, others within the industry might be interested in, our consumers might be interested in, our teams might be interested in. Like that. That was another big one for me. Was especially in the other business that got to be 30 people, uh, 30 people size or so, that even though we did have regular meetings and tried to get together as often as possible, especially in that morning meeting, we just didn't always have the time for the company to hear about the things that were maybe necessarily important to me as the leader or to other leaders within the organization, or things that management maybe have been talking about kind of in some of those higher level meetings that were important maybe for some of the other team to hear. And they could really tap into the culture and just kind of our trajectories, our thoughts, some the directions we were going, without physically having to have a meeting to sit down, tell people all about it. They could tune into our social networks or wherever and learn a little bit more every time they did about the company they worked for. Just because the brand was so repetitive and the mission was so repetitive and the values were so repetitive and the standards and the processes and all the stuff we captured, really helps us sell the vision internally. It helps us sell the vision externally to our consumers, to others in the industry also. So it really just allows a platform, that's a little more personal,
Sure.
aside from maybe from just finding a website or
Sure. Or
looking
seeing
at
a
Google
logo.
reviews or seeing a logo. Yeah,
Yeah.
man. So
Yeah. As a marketer, I wanted to go off at about seven different trains there on what you were talking about,
we'll
because
go.
this is what I love and study. It's just why people react to certain things, and I think one of the not myths, but one of the things that is really frustrating to me is that 7 to 9 times someone sees your brand before they trust it.
Hmm.
And how do they quantify that? How does that matter? Why does that matter? Does it matter? And but by people seeing your brand and getting that repetition and also seeing your face, it's your first sales contact. It gives them a way without having to actually see you in person. A lot of people are not people persons.
Yeah.
People these days. It gives them a chance to see you, and as you said, your beliefs. And when it comes to your team as well, I remember that, and we haven't gotten in a long time. I think this was mainly when we were first starting. People were wanting to know within your company, why in the heck are we even doing this? Like having a camera on site, and why are you even before I was there, so dedicated to Instagram and just trying to put yourself out there, not really even knowing what it was. And I think those questions just go away after a while. And I think if even though, especially with a crew, a crew of typically guys that like to jab each other, you can get some stuff for being so happy and forward thinking and about putting down some blacktop, But after a while, they get on board. They like it. They like that. That's what you mean. They like staying busy. And it just there's so many positive impacts to it, I think, that you touched on that we could dive into. But um, out of that one, step one to educating your clients. Something that you've brought up so many times is that for what can be for a lot of people a significant investment, the opportunity to just give them at least a little heads up on what you could be facing and putting yourself out there as someone who knows what they're talking about rather than just someone who comes up to their door with a flyer or someone like that. Of course, your flyers look fantastic and takes them to a great website. But I was wondering if you get much from clients where they already seem educated or if they've seen some of your content and kind of refer to that when you go to meet them in person.
Yeah, I mean, we do, and certainly, as we had spent 4 or 5 years, establishing that with the other entity. I mean, people would recognize me, or not even just me, but like our logo and our brand just out in the community. Like they'd see a logo on my shirt or someone, a sales, representative shirt, and be like, "Hey, I've seen you, and I know about you, and I know Cindy works in the office." And I mean, just the things they would pull um, would be pretty incredible, man. So uh, again, it just offers some validation to the brand and the company, and uh, it it not only gives the perception, but it's also the reality that we are deep rooted in the community. We are an operating business. This is what we look like. This is who we are, and I think that's the biggest thing we tried to capture and we continue to capture is our authenticity, genuine unscripted moments um, that really highlight the authenticity of the brand, because that's what people buy when people go to do business with a company or a brand or a chain. Or it's they do they do business with people they like, not necessarily just the things they have to sell. Like I've said before in an episode, uh, a couple back, there's 15 or so other options in our market alone for people that can go find someone to pave their driveway. Now, who's going to show up? Who's going to give them a good experience through the whole sales process? Who's the company that they can look up and find on social media, whether that be Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, Google, all the platforms, and they can say, "Oh my gosh, they've even got some video." I mean, just all those things add up when people buy and decide who they want to do business with and who they like, and most importantly, who they trust. Um, because if they don't like you and they don't trust you, there's no way in hell they're doing business with you. And we can capture both of those things through what we're doing by getting things on camera and getting those out in a fashion. Because a lot of the times when we go meet with our consumers, I would say as much as we try to make it a point to be able to meet someone on site and get that face-to-face interaction, people are busy. People's schedules are busy. Not everyone has time to meet the driveway guy or the parking lot guy, and especially on some of these commercial clients now, like they'll send you an RFP and they've already got the plans and the specs and the scope, all of it's put together, and they just want you to put some numbers together. Well, if I can send them some things along with that proposal, maybe a link or two, or direct them to find a little bit more information about our business or myself or the team that's going to be performing the job, that gets them a little comfort level. So where they're not just looking at numbers and buying based off of that, they're buying based off some emotions now at that point, and some trust, and some things we may have in common, or our morals, ethics, values might, something we capture, record, or say might click with someone. Say, "Ooh, I like that they operate that. I like that they do the Heart in the Pavement program. Whatever it is, um, and that's why you do it. It's uh, and I'll tell you this: when I first started this, when I was doing it on my own before we were able to have the resources to bring in a marketing firm to bring you in. Um, I had it way twisted the first time because I was getting on camera or starting on social, and it was that whole comparison, show off, let me flaunt who we are, what we've got kind of mentality. And it's not that at all, and it shouldn't be that at all. And I'm not saying that you can't be proud of what you do or who you are, but it's really finding a way to tap into the genuineness of the brand of the company, and that's when things really start mattering. And by the way, speaking of being able to uh, hire someone to do this, the first couple years that I was playing with Instagram when it started becoming popular, I don't know what, 7, 8 years ago, um, it became a dangerous obsession. It became so time consuming, and it was almost like that piece of what I was trying to do with it, that almost became the most important part of running the business. So, and I want to just throw out some caution to that, because we talk about the importance of getting on camera and getting content put together and being visible in ways other than just having a website or being on Google. Don't let this become an obsession. Don't let it become uh, something that can overrun all the other important things you need to do with your business. Because and and by the way, that's why I partner with you, because uh, as much as I value and appreciate and understand how important everything we're doing is, if I tried to manage all of that on my own, A, I'm not nearly as gifted as you are with it, but B, the amount of time it would take as a small business owner, um, it's immense, it's massive, and it can become obsessive, and it can become something where your priorities get skewed on what's important. So uh,
That's an that's an incredible point, and I really think we should put as a topic here in the next couple episodes just social media in general for your company and what the pros and cons. Um, but as far as that particular point, it's spot on because I have spent 7 years now trying to figure out the systems of the numbers and things like that with specifically social media, and
yeah.
it'll drive you absolutely insane, especially if you start going down that hole of those metrics over your company metrics. It'll drive you nuts. You can't. There's such a seed of randomness and consistency that even to be consistent enough, if you don't even at least have a short plan on how you're going to be compact with your recording. Like, I'm gonna pull my camera out when this type of thing happens. I'm gonna record for a few seconds. I'm gonna go ahead and send it or save it for later and put it back in my pocket. Because if not, you can
Mm.
get lost in there. And
Yeah.
um, it's nothing. It's something I've never really talked about as far as the different brands that do. I think there is some value to showing off your equipment and um, showing that you have the capability of handling
For
larger
sure.
products. Giving that kind of professional badass feel is what we went with too. But when it comes down to it, you are educating the customer. And as impressive as those things are, I remember, especially with you in the beginning, it was, I think we maybe did 2 or 3 videos and then we decided to go on a retainership basis. But it was so sad in the beginning to see people that wanted videos and sunk not only their own time and energies into it, but would, um, hand me money to produce a great video. And they had no plan for it besides wanting to
Yeah.
feel like they had a professional company. But now there are, of
Mm.
course, plenty of things you can do with the video. If they had thought about it beforehand, like putting it on your homepage, or if you start a simple YouTube channel, making it your trailer, or pinning it as a video to the top of your social media, there are things you can do. But we only get 100 views and spend a couple $1,000s on a video. That makes everyone feel terrible. So I think in general, when you come at
Yeah.
this, I, I wanted to follow up with a question about your mentality when you first started. Um, you spoke a bit about not going down that hole, but you did get started on Instagram. It did take you to a place where we are now. When we look back over the things that the steps that you've kind of taken to get there, you started off doing it yourself, and then we ended up speaking at pavement expos to classes and getting a ton of partnership opportunities, some great exposure to some national companies. But you'd had no clue that that's what it was going to be starting out. And it didn't even sound like that was maybe your goal starting out. But do you remember like the
Oh,
things that you saw, like the people or brands that you saw that kind of got you into it, and maybe what it took you to just try something like that?
and you're right, man, because in the beginning, all I wanted were some badass videos too. I was
Yeah.
like, let's let's do some cool shit. And by the way, a couple things we did early on were those season kind of kickoff, like those hype videos we do for the crew, and they were great for orientation and like
Yeah.
videos like that are amazing for things like that. We also turned a few of those into commercials that we ran during some of the University of Kentucky's bowl games. We bought some ad space and put together some television marketing, which were amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
It's a ton of eyeballs on that game. It was a great game too.
yeah, it was. I mean, that was awesome. But I mean, man, going back, I mean, some of the ones that really got me going. I mean, American Pavement has always been a staple. They've been putting out ahead of the curve content for got to be close. If we started 7 years ago, they were doing at least a few months or a year before we really got cooking with it.
Yeah. They're
So
honestly maybe the first and only brand at that time that was out doing that kind of stuff. There were, of course, people that had like company overview videos that were kind of sit the owner in front of the camera and show some drone shots of their footage behind them or
yeah,
something, but um it wasn't like a pro sport team or something like that. Like
yeah,
almost like a monster truck type thing or something like
right,
that. Yeah.
right. Yeah, I mean, so they were one, and yeah, man, trying to remember back that far. I mean, there were obviously some individual personalities, people in kind of their own self brands that
Hmm.
were doing it really well at that time that I kind of gravitated towards. But
Hmm.
I, I don't know what or who we wanted to be with it. I just yeah, again, I think if I'm being honest, man, I started for the wrong reasons when it was like it was an ego. It was all an ego thing when it started. It was like I want to show off on
Yeah.
social media.
Yeah.
I want to make some badass videos. I want to tell people how cool our company is. And look, there's nothing wrong with that because if you do it correctly, there's some value to recruiting in new stuff. Like I can't tell you the amount of staff we acquired over the years that we did it, of people that found us and said, "Hey, I want to go work for this company. It looks like they
Yep.
have fun. It looks like they have a good culture. It looks like they have big goals. It looks like they take care of their employees. Looks like they have nice equipment. The company I work for now, all the shit's broken down all the time, or whatever it may be. That again, something within that content aligns with somebody's eyeballs and heart,
Sure.
that's watching. So you get people with either with the mind connection, the mental connection, or with their emotions, and you bring people to the table.
Yeah, and you thinking back on that strategy, I remember thinking that it wasn't a horrible one because um, social media was not quite as saturated. There weren't hardly any companies doing that kind of thing, and so when we got the other eyeballs and a few likes and comments and stuff, that definitely counts rolling. But
Yes.
I there is a large point there. I think there is some caution there too. I don't think you want to do that too often. And also, if you are not experienced in video editing or messaging, it could end up bad. If you're trying to look um, super professional or badass and then it doesn't, I think it may come off a little odd to the viewer, maybe a potential customer.
Sure.
But I do have to say that, just it comes down to just about everything else we talk about here. It's trial and error, and
Yeah.
owning and running the business. And to pass up the opportunity you with those early videos, you were speaking to other people in the industry, like, and those are the people that you got that viewed it, and you were being a salesperson to them more than
Absolutely.
maybe your customer, but you got your message out there, and it's a risk worth taking in a lot of points, if nothing else, just to give you that first impression and to try to make that first impression a good one to where people are going to remember you, and if they're ready to call you right now.
Yeah, and that's a great point because you know what that did back in those days was it started building the communities within our industry that have never existed because everyone had always been so secretive of their information, of their trade secrets, of their markets,
Yeah.
of their tactics, of how like that those the people back 7, 8 years ago that kind of got into this social media push started creating and evolving the original communities, I believe, within our industry from a
Mhm.
social media presence. I mean, if you weren't a member of national, asphalt pavement, trade, these national trade associations or your local, Kentucky Association of Highway Contractors or Plant Mix Asphalt Industries of Kentucky or the Kentucky Crushed Stone Association, there were no other forms of community in our industry. So these, for me, seem to be kind of the grassroots um, areas where we all started communicating and people would start DMing and asking questions and getting vulnerable and getting help and finding mentorship in ways they'd never been able to do that before. And that's awesome.
Yeah.
So if some badass videos that people put together allowed someone to say that maybe was just starting off, hey, how did you do it? How did you acquire this equipment? What's your journey look like? I saw you out there running that piece of equipment. Do you like it? I mean, whatever. I don't know if I had the history in my phone, in my social media accounts from all of the direct messages that have come in over the last 6, 7, 8 years from people either asking for help and me giving advice or me doing the same things with people that were doing things that I hadn't done yet or wanted
Sure.
to learn how to do. It's massive, man. And by the way, it's all free.
Yeah.
And like
Absolutely.
none of it was transactional. Like it was just straight legit community.
Yeah, that's
And
that's bananas.
it's amazing. And like you just said a minute ago, like you didn't know where we were going to go with any of this when we started 7 years ago. Well, look what it's turned into today.
Sure.
Look at the programs we've created. Look at the ways we're giving. Look at the asphalt industry reports and all the other the things that we've done along the way that are born out of just ideas of doing this and us getting creative. And sometimes we're not even intentionally creative. It just happens out of proximity. Say, hey, let's
Yeah.
try this. Let's try that.
Yeah, you get us together for a weekend, we end up with another idea that we're executing on the next week.
Yeah.
It's just it's addicting, and the
We still
trust.
got an ace in the hole that one day people are going to know about.
Oh yeah,
But
absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, we, as I said, no shortage, no shortage, and yeah, if we're talking about that in the near future, that'll be really damn exciting. But even those opportunities were somewhat brought about through building trust through video and stuff like that. But as I was talking about building trust with your customer, that's essentially what we were doing with other people in the industry, and it's essentially what you do on
that's it.
social media if you put yourself out there. Because when you were speaking about the comparison of having that community and people in your industry being so secretive, we're not, and it just struck me, we're not just talking about people not sharing their information when you DM them on social media. We're talking about a time when social media communication was non existent. You're in your market, and if you don't have friends or family in another state anywhere, like you're learning all this through maybe instructional videos, some brochures, some general instruction manuals, a ton of trial and error. So just being in this time and being able to put yourself on camera, as you said, even if you're on social media and saying, what would you do in this situation, and you make that a post and people can vote on it and you start interacting that way, that kind of comfort and camaraderie and just ability to reach out to someone instantly.
Hmm.
I mean, it's incredible, and if you put those videos out there, you're gonna get as you said, people coming to you and you go into video if you stick with it and if you know you're passionate about what you do.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I've got what I believe are going to be, lifelong friendships that I've acquired through people I've met all across not just the country but across the world, like
Sure.
people that I communicate with. I mean, Marvin Joel's prime example.
Yeah.
He's probably the first person I met in the flesh through just a social media connection. We were DMing each other for a year or two, just both kind of grinding through being young entrepreneurs and first time business owners and muscling through the challenges of this industry. And he's driving down from Wisconsin to Nashville today and said, "Hey, it's me, Mr. Short Notice, but I'll be driving through Louisville today." And we were able to hook up for lunch today. I mean,
Yeah.
he was in town for a show 7, 8 years ago. And that's he said, "Hey, I'm going to be in Louisville. Are you free?" And we met at the Galt House,
Yeah.
and we've had a lifelong friendship ever since. I mean, and that's started just over social media, and it's we've been there for each other more times than I can even remember over the course of our friendship, and it's awesome.
Yeah. Absolutely. Um, it really kind of brings together the capability of what can happen if you do choose to put yourself out there. And I guess if I could kind of segue into one last thing, and that is make sure that you are genuine on camera. Make sure that when you show up, when people meet that person in real life, that you can be that camera, or be that type of person, because you definitely want to be able to follow through with that consistency because it is an opportunity for you to show your customer who they're going to see on site. You know, so I'd like to
Absolutely.
just put it out there to stay true to yourself and don't get too hung up on editing and retakes and all that stuff. Uh, Often mistakes can lead to some genuine interactions, and so don't be afraid to do that either.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Absolutely. W-
I think that's a great point. I mean, we have found that our most authentic stuff is our best stuff
Yeah, it's
because it's not scripted, it's not faked, it's not shot 10 times, it's not, it's who we are.
sure, sure,
This is who we are.
and people custom from customers to people in your industry. That's who you're interacting with, and that's who you get the chance to um, show that to. And when you do that, and when you get in the zone and it gets comfortable, that's that flow state of mind, and people can tell that you
Yeah.
enjoy what you do, and you're probably going to get the sale. You know what I mean? If you get those customers warmed up to who you are, you know, with your personality, and then they get that on that first handshake and through the conversation. I mean, you're more than just you're definitely more than just someone brand new showing up on their doorstep. They know your name more, they know your brand more by having that second or third or fourth piece of material
Yeah.
that you are when you show up on that doorstep. So, um, yeah,
That's so true.
yeah,
It's that you're right. It's by the time you show up on their door, if they've done their homework and we're visible in the places we should be visible, they've already had two or three, four interactions with you and or your company before you've even shown up on their property.
sure. Yeah,
You know,
I would hope, and you know, I guess this has been a slight goal of mine, but for them to what do they call it when you see like a star shock or whatever it is, where you know,
starstruck,
starstruck. Yeah, you know, I've seen it with people.
thunderstruck.
Yeah, I've seen it on people's faces when they see you. Definitely when um, we've been to conventions and stuff like that. But it's neat. Even when I was recording for you, and
Yeah, weird.
people would allow us to um, record on their properties and record your all's interactions and stuff. They knew what was going on. Like they were
Yeah,
genuinely happy to see you. You could tell like they had been looking forward to meeting you. Not because they've seen 30 pieces or they're like fanboying or anything, but just because you're someone that put themselves out there, you know,
forgot about that.
on behalf of their own beliefs.
Yeah,
And a lot of these people want to shake that person's hand to see if you're the real deal. And how
you're
warm is
right.
that lead before you've even started to take a
Yeah.
measurement, you know? So
Yeah, I've forgotten about it. You're right. I mean, that happened. That used to happen a lot. And I've forgotten about all that.
yeah, yeah,
That's a testament to what we're doing, man. I tell you, and I just want to give some kudos because I want to give some credit where credit's due with American Pavement. We talked about them being one of the first we maybe kind of gravitated toward and said, man, they do this pretty well. I mean, now, Matt they've established, the Raised on Blacktop brand, and they were down at World of Asphalt. And I mean, he's signing autographs now, man. So I
yeah,
mean, and not just for kids, I mean, it's people within the industry, like getting their hats signed, getting their shirts signed. He's, throwing events. So talk about community over a 8-9 year period of time. It started with just an idea of shooting some cool videos to what it can become. Like, that's awesome. It's
sure,
awesome.
sure. Yeah, um I never got into the competitive nature of that company. We definitely got brought up frequently when people would talk about them, but I do remember when they reached out and to me personally and just said how badass the videos were. I was like, that's cool.
Made you feel good. And yeah,
I was
yeah,
like, that's cool.
yeah.
And just because they have, it really feels like, uh, I guess, a race team. Like it's almost like there's a racing team traveling across the country when they get all their gear out or something, and like
Dude,
just brand on brand on brand, and looks like they have crisp equipment, and you
yeah.
know, there's they've
And
absolutely
and
crushed it.
again, there you go. And that's why it works, because what they show of who they are online and on social is exactly who they are when they show up to do a job, or when they show up to World of Asphalt as a Raised on Black. I mean, they're exactly. It's not. It's not just a highlight reel of, oh, our trucks and equipment are clean and this is what our work looks like. It is. It's
Sure,
exactly what it is.
sure,
There's no smoke and mirrors. There's no fronts. There's no snake oil. This is us. And by the way, and it was that before social media became a thing and they started telling people that's who they were. But like,
sure.
to your point earlier, once you start doing that, you better make sure you're backing that up when you do show up,
Yeah.
because you will get exposed very quickly if it's the other way around.
Yes. Much more quickly in the days of past too, and it was word of mouth. You will
Yeah,
people have a way to take
100%.
out their anger, and it will affect your bottom line when if you kind of cut down to it. So
Yep.
well, Kev, I really appreciate the time. This was a really good conversation, and I do think that some episode down the line here we'll talk about just social media strategy and pros and cons and all that stuff. But as far as the topic of being on camera and putting yourself out there, did you have any thoughts that you didn't get to today?
I don't think so, man. Just and if you have reservations about it, again, like with anything, just start,
Yeah.
or just hop into some DMs and start a conversation with people. Reach out and just, there's so much community in this industry nowadays that it's, if you can't find some folks that you can align with and collaborate with, and find some folks that are willing to help you out, then you're just not looking hard enough. So
Yeah,
just
absolutely.
give it a shot.
Absolutely. That's right. And maybe we'll see you out there on the crazy world of the social media and all that other stuff. So
Man,
thanks, Kev, for your time.
thank
As
you,
far
man.
as everyone else, if you want to keep the party going, visit paveitforwardllc.com or find us on YouTube or Instagram at Pave It Forward LLC. There are more resources coming soon, like announcements, industry questionnaires, and deeper dives into topics like the one you heard here today. So thanks everyone for listening. Kevin, any last thoughts for the people today?
Oh man, we nailed it. We hit them all.
Let's go. All right, everyone, go have a good day, and we will see you soon. This has been the Pave It Forward podcast. Stick around for episodes you may have missed or catch us on our socials at Pave It Forward LLC.